The Elite Four, some of the most powerful and highly acclaimed trainers in any Pokemon region. Pretty much every region that has these four holds them in high regard. But what do they actually do? When their region is in danger, why is it always just the champion or just the gym leaders that step in? The region is burning, the universe is about to be destroyed, there are literal aliens invading from other dimensions, and these bozos are just sitting there while a couple of 10-year-olds and maybe a 30-year-old handle everything? Why is it like this? Why are they always absent and almost never seem to step up? That's what I want to figure out today, and I think the best way to do that is to talk about the Elite Four in each different region before coming to a conclusion, as each region has its own unique circumstances and potential reasons for them not intervening. Let's start with the Kanto region. Kanto is probably one of the few regions that doesn't really need the Elite Four to intervene. The only major evil organization is Team Rocket, but they're more of a gang or a mafia than a terrorist organization like most regions have. As such, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for the Elite Four to get involved with such petty crime, especially since Kanto does have police in some capacity. Them getting involved would be like the US government getting involved with the mafia. Oh wait, yet despite the nature of Team Rocket, Kanto is actually one of the few regions where an Elite Four member does get involved, as Lorelei helps out with poachers on 4 Island. Granted, 4 Island is where her house and family are, and she didn't exactly help out at any other point in the games, so I wonder if she actually cares about stopping Team Rocket, or if she only cared in this instance because it was an inconvenience to her. Regardless, she did intervene, so that has to at least count for something, right? I think it's also worth noting that Kanto didn't have a champion when the games were taking place, so there's a legitimate reason that the champion did not intervene either, since they literally just didn't exist. The champion does get involved in Johto though, as Lance makes an appearance to stop Team Rocket from forcing evolutions in the Lake of Rage, and his help is very much appreciated, but regular Elite Four members? Nope. None. Nowhere to be seen. Johto is in a bit of a weird place though, considering it does share a Pokemon League with the Kanto region. I could totally see their reason for not intervening being some weird jurisdiction complications. They might represent Johto in a way, but some of them probably aren't from the Johto region, right? I mean, Koga obviously isn't, since he was a Kanto gym leader, so there's a good chance a couple others aren't from Johto either, and therefore don't have the same liberties they might in Kanto. I kind of think this is corroborated by Lorelei's intervention on 4 Island actually. As an Elite Four member whose primary residence is 4 Island, she probably had a bit more leeway with the authorities over that area than most. Regardless, I don't think it's a huge deal that the Elite Four are absent from the region, considering the relatively low danger provided by the deteriorating Team Rocket. I think the next 4 regions are the most egregious when it comes to the Elite Four being lazy. Let's set the scene for a second. The Hoenn region is facing a once-in-a-millennia disaster, where 1, if not 2, of the most destructive legendary Pokemon have been woken from their slumber by an eco-terrorist organization. How many Elite Four members tried to help? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Do all 4 try to contribute? No, it's 0. All 4 of these losers do diddly squat while this region is being ravaged by natural disasters. It's wild, especially since half of them have teams that would work pretty well against Groudon and Kyogre. Drake's Dragon-type team almost entirely resists Water-type moves, and a lot of them have Levitate or are part flying as well, meaning many of them resist Kyogre's primary attacking type and are immune to Groudon's. He's literally such a good counter to both the legendary Pokemon that are fighting. Glacia isn't a bad option either. Ice is super effective against ground, and more than half her team is water type too, so she should be able to resist Kyogre a decent bit as well. Sydney and Phoebe, whatever. I'm sure they could contribute in some way, but they're not nearly as important as the first 2. But instead of Drake or Glacia helping, we get either Wallace or Steven. Wallace makes sense as he is a water type trainer, meaning he would basically have the same advantages as Glacia. Paldea. Then there's Steven, who uses primarily rock and steel type Pokemon, neither of which do particularly well into Kyogre or Groudon, especially Groudon. Now look, I love Steven. He's one of my favorite Twinks in the Pokemon franchise, but this dude does not match up well into these legendaries. And yet he's out there defending his region while the Elite Four are sitting like, I don't know, a mile away, max. It's crazy to me that he wouldn't at least ask for help from the people literally one room away from him for this crisis. I truly cannot figure out any reason for the Elite Four to stay out of the emergency in Hoenn. At least in Sinnoh, there is a bit of a reason. Not a great reason, but a reason nonetheless. That being the international police, who are very involved in trying to stop Team Galactic. Looker makes periodic appearances throughout the Sinnoh games, including the Platinum post-game. Granted, he and his co-workers were not the most effective at stopping Team Galactic, all things considered, but at least there was a law enforcement agency involved. And also Cynthia. Honestly, with Cynthia there, I can kind of understand why the others stayed out of the way. Like, if Cynthia isn't enough to beat Team Galactic, what are the rest of these bozos gonna do? No offense to the rest of the Sinnoh Elite Four, but she's kind of stronger than all of them combined. If she can't do it, no one in the Pokemon League stands a chance. That being said, Sinnoh is one of the few regions where we do see an Elite Four member outside of their jail cell-like chamber, which is an incredibly low bar, but one that is apparently hard to clear. It's Flint, as he is seen in and around Sunnyshore's City and in the fight arena in the post-game. In both cases, he's just kind of hanging around his depressed friend trying to cheer him up. And that's kind of it. Don't get me wrong, helping out your friends is important, but like, you couldn't have helped out anywhere else. You only want to help your friend. The rest of the region means nothing to you. That whole crisis on top of the mountain you just didn't care about. Well, I guess if I was a fire type trainer in Sinnoh, I might not care too much about the region either. But still, these four definitely could have and should have stepped up a bit more. And as bad as Sinnoh and Hoenn are, the next two regions are somehow even worse. But before we get into them, please consider subscribing. Subscribing is one of the best ways to support this channel and stay up to date on videos. Right now, over 95% of my audience is not subscribed, which is kind of crazy. So if you're enjoying this video, double check to make sure you are subscribed, because there's a good chance you think you are, but you're actually not. Also, I just started a Patreon for this channel as well, with tons of bonus content. So if you're interested in something like that and want to support the channel more directly, there is a link to that in the description down below as well. Let's start with Unova. If you've ever only played Black and White 2, you might be thinking, what? How is the Elite Four here worse than it is in Hoenn or Sinnoh? The threat is way lower than it is in those games. And to be fair, you're kind of right. In both the original games and the sequels, the stakes are way lower than they are in the Gen 3 or 4 games. However, the climax of the original Black and White games is basically Team Plasma trying to take over the location of the Pokemon League, as they try laying siege to it in a bid to try and take over the entire region. And who is it that steps up to defend the Pokemon League? It's the gym leaders. They come from all across the region to try and prevent Team Plasma from succeeding in their plan. And the Elite Four do nothing, as there is a huge threat literally right outside their door. The strongest trainers in the region are just waiting inside while everyone else is outside fighting for them. In Sinnoh or Hoenn, I could potentially see the locations of their respective disasters posing an issue in terms of intervention. Maybe they couldn't get to the top of Spear Pillar in time since it's not a flyable location. Maybe the inclement weather conditions made it hard to access Sootopolis City, although I don't know if I'd believe that one since Drake has a Salamence. But the Unova Elite Four has no excuse to stay out of the conflict when the conflict is literally in their front yards. The fate of the region is at stake, and they sit inside twiddling their thumbs and losing to N. It's wild. How is every gym leader from across the region gonna show up, but not a single Elite Four member will take a single step outside? Are their rooms completely soundproof? Do they just not know? Are there no attendants that can notify them of this impending disaster as they battle? And then there's Kalos. Kalos might just be the worst case out of all of them. Team Flare alone is a huge threat to the region. They basically want to destroy it because it's not pretty enough, which is insane, and they were also somehow almost capable enough to do it, as they would have used the ultimate weapon if not for the protagonist character. That alone is more than enough of a reason for officials to get involved, in my opinion. Like, if there's some dude who wants to use the ultimate weapon to destroy the entirety of France, how about the region employs more than a small group of 10-year-olds to get rid of them? Yeah? It's crazy too, because Team Flare is such a joke of an evil team. Compared to pretty much all their predecessors, these guys are just so easy, and that's even with Mega Evolution. But their non-intervention isn't the only reason the Kalos Elite Four are the worst. They also somehow let a Team Flare admin into their ranks. Malva is literally a member of the organization trying to destroy the region and a member of the Elite Four, and the rest of them either don't know, which just exemplifies their incompetence, or they do know but don't care, which might be even worse. I have to assume that the rest of the Elite Four doesn't know about Malva's identity, because the idea that they do and don't care is just so much worse. It would mean they just don't care about so much of the culture they're supposed to exemplify, and the rest knowing Malva's identity would compromise the entire Kalos Pokemon League, if not the entire idea of the Pokemon League as a whole. Although, if every Pokemon League is paid off by their evil teams, I guess that would explain why so few seem to intervene. I'll come back to that thought later. From here on out though, I think each Elite Four has a pretty good reason for not intervening in the main story. Take Alola for example. It's hard to point fingers at the Elite Four for not doing anything, since the Elite Four is literally brand new in the first games. Like, it was set up shortly before we arrived to challenge it, and that's part of why there isn't a champion until there's us. What's kind of crazy though is even with this newness, the Alola Elite Four are still some of the most active we see in any Pokemon game. This is because two of the Elite Four members are also island kahunas, Hala and Olivia, who not only play a major part in the main story, but also step up to protect Alola from the Ultra Beasts in the Ultra games. Even if this is only half the Elite Four, that's still 50% more contribution than pretty much every other region, and that's from a Pokemon League in its infancy. Honestly, if Alola can do it, I see no reason that other more established regions cannot do it as well. I guess it just goes to show that a higher degree of care for one's region makes them more willing to step up to protect it, which just makes Unova's Elite Four even weirder. Next is Galar, which is another pretty unique region. As far as I can tell, it's the only region that doesn't technically have a set Elite Four. Instead, it's basically a tournament with the final match being against the champion. This format is pretty cool, and I think this style of important battles is one of the best part of the Galar games. It also gives the region a great excuse for why the Elite Four didn't get evolved in the story. They literally don't exist. That being said, this is one of the regions where the champion, Leon, is highly involved, as he makes several story appearances and also tries to save the world, even if he does end up failing. And finally, we arrive at Paldea. In Paldea, the Elite Four members are at least out and about. In fact, they seem to be very involved with the going-ons around the region, with Larry having at least one other job as a gym leader, Hassel working as a teacher at the academy, Rika appearing a few times throughout the story as Gita's personal assistant, and Poppy just kind of following Rika around. But she's literally a child, so it's not like I can fault her for acting like a child. I'm curious if Paldea is sort of a model for how the Pokemon League is supposed to work. Having each Elite Four member be a functioning member of society makes far more sense than having them just sit in a room all day every day. I want to believe this Elite Four would intervene if catastrophe struck Paldea, but since the biggest threats we see are spontaneous and take place like a mile underground, I understand why they weren't involved in those parts of the story. There's also the Blueberry Academy Elite Four, which is just kind of weird. I don't think I can give these guys a hard time either, since once again, there's not really a huge evil team running around the academy or anything. Oh, and they're also literally children. Although ironically enough, if there was an evil team, I do kind of feel like these guys would stand their ground in a lot of cases. I think the simplest explanation for why the Elite Four seems to intervene so infrequently is they probably have to be asked to intervene. Despite being some of the strongest trainers in each region, I highly doubt the Elite Four has law enforcement capabilities, as giving such capabilities to anyone who became an Elite Four member could lead to corruption and destabilization investigation within a region. Take a look at Kalos. Could you imagine if Malva had the ability to make law decisions while also being a member of Team Flare? Giving Elite Four members the ability to conduct investigations and basically be vigilantes would only end poorly. If I had to guess, I would say Elite Four members and champions can probably be hired by regional governments and then be given special privileges in times of extreme need. This would explain why champions are often seen helping out with problems within a region, although I suspect the cost of hiring a champion would be quite high, unless they're willing to work pro bono. But considering this is all just theoretical, I'm not sure how likely that is either. At the end of the day, if a 12-year-old can figure out how to avert some kind of disaster, do we really need all of the Elite Four members to intervene? Anyway, let me know in the comments down below why you think the Elite Four don't do anything. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you made it to the end, be sure to subscribe and maybe check out the Patreon as well. I would really appreciate it. I'll see you again next weekend for yet another video. Be sure to do something nice for yourself this week. See ya!